Hope you guys can see me well. Right? So if 100 to 300 million were put into Last of Us movie, Last of Us, the movie would flop and will not be better than Lord of the Rings. If you have Eretet as what, a CG wolf, right? Ephesus is a CG bat. CG, too much CG in what? In the world building, obviously. What? The movie will not be as good. Be as good. And it will not be better than Lord of the Rings. See what I'm saying here? The Lord of the Rings. So I'm going to keep saying this. If 100 million or 200 million were put into Last of Us, the movie would be a flop, obviously, and it will not be better than Lord of the Rings. If you have Eretet as a CG wolf or have Ephesus as a CG bat, too much CG in the world building, the movie will not be as good and it will not be better than Lord of the Rings. The world will what? The wolves and bats would what? Look too computery. Even though computery is not a word, I'm saying computer here. They look too what? Computery, obviously. Right? And cheesy. The world building will look too what? Too computery, obviously. Computery. Spelling it wrong here. The what? The wolves and bats will look too computery and cheesy, and the world building will look too what? Will look too computery. Hence why I'm not summarized to a Hollywood company, as I don't want anyone to read my story, obviously. And if 100 to 300 million were put towards Xanus, the movie, in today's world, 100, $300 million, if $300 million for Xanus is not enough, we need to put like 900 plus million into it. $300 million is a lot of money, obviously. But for a story like Xanus, you gotta put unheard amount of money. If you want to have Eretet be the devil himself, get unheard of action sequences and get unheard of world building, advanced world, you need to put unheard amount of money into it. As I'm putting almost 400 million towards special effects alone. That's how top notch a movie will be. As most movies are made for what, 250 million as a whole. That includes salaries and special effects and all that stuff. Whereas I'm putting 400 million towards 380 million towards special effects alone. It does include salaries, it does include unheard of world building. It does include all that, yeah, man. And the music does include all that. Hence why if you put 100 to 300 million, if 100 to 300 million were put into Last of Us, the movie would flop. It will not be better than Lord of the Rings. If you have Eretet as a CG wolf, Ephesus as a CG bat, too much CG in the world building, the movie will not be as good and will not be better than Lord of the Rings. And the wolves and bats will look too computery and cheesy, and the world building will look too computery. Hence, the movie would flop. It'd be not bad, but it wouldn't be. I guarantee you, it will not be better than Lord of the Rings. You have put too much CG in your world building, have Eretet be a full-on CG wolf, Eretet a full-on CG bat, the movie would flop. It wouldn't be that good. Eretet has to be the most horrific being in movie history to do justice for the story. Obviously. Ephesus has to be the most horrific being in movie history. The wolves and bats are devils, obviously. That way you do justice for the story. As in the end of Volume 3, Taki's in agony. Why Taki's in agony? Because he's about to go to war against the devil himself. And you also have the cursed demon ancestors. I don't want to kill the story, but you'll find out that when you read the book, obviously. Right? I'm going to say this. Lord of the Rings was made for about what? Was made for about what? For about 280 million. 280 million around there. My math will be off. Yeah, about 280 million for the whole series, obviously. So each of the movies were made for about 90 million each. I did some research. So Lord of the Rings was made for about 280 million for the whole series. For the whole trilogy, and you got a world like that, obviously, right? and you what? And you got an amazing world action sequences, right? And don't forget, this was what? This was in the early 2000s when technology wasn't as high, as good back then. Don't forget, this was what? This was in the early 2000s. That's right. And you got what? You got a movie like that. Like that, right? Well, imagine what in the 2020s, obviously. Technology. Don't forget, technology got better since then. Obviously, technology has gotten better. Obviously, right? So we'll imagine in 2020s, technology has gotten better. A 970 million put towards what? An amazing what? Last hope for xanus movie. You're looking at what? At an 8K world, better than Avatar. Except it looks more natural, obviously, right? Except it looks more natural. Unheard of action sequences, obviously. You're looking at something unheard of the action sequences. Remember that scene when in Revolutions when Neo was fighting Smith in the rain? Think something like that because they're fighting with swords, right? Action sequences and unheard of horror. Scarier than The Exorcist. For all those who saw The Exorcist, if you think that's scary, think something 3 times that for Zane. Looking at demons and devils, man. Action sequences and unheard of horror scarier than what? The Exorcist, man. That's how scary these beings are going to be, man. Right? So I'm going to keep saying this. So Lord of the Rings was made for about $280 million for the whole trilogy, and you got an amazing world. You got amazing world building, action sequences, right? Don't forget, this was in the early 2000s, and you got a movie like that. So Lord of the Rings was made for about $280 million for all 3 movies, obviously. So every movie was made for about $90 million each, and you got a world like that in the early 2000s. Well, imagine in the 2020s, technology has gotten better. Don't forget that. So technology has gotten much better in the past 20 years, right? So don't forget that. So technology has gotten better, obviously. Don't forget that. Imagine $970 million put towards an amazing Last of Us movie. You're looking at an 8K world, better than Avatar, except it looks more natural. Unheard of action scenes and unheard of horror, scarier than The Exorcist. So for all you guys who saw The Exorcist, if you thought that movie was scary, I remember when I saw The Exorcist, I was freaked out. I was looking around my room. It freaked me out when I saw the movie about 10 years ago. 2010, 2011, I saw the movie. I rented it. I rented the movie and I was fucking spooked. If you think The Exorcist was scary, think something 3 times for Eretaf. Eretaf, Ephesians, and all them are literal devils on the screen. They're literal devils on the screen, man. Literal devils, man. Scarier than The Exorcist, obviously. So imagine in 2020s, technology has gotten better. $970 million put towards an amazing Last of Us movie. You're looking at an 8K world better than Avatar, except it looks more natural. Unheard of action sequences and unheard of horror, scarier than The Exorcist. Hence, why what? Last of Us, if it's done right, will be a better movie than what? It'll be a better movie than what? Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, if it's done right. So Lord of the Rings was made for about $280 million for the whole trilogy, and you got an amazing world building and action scenes for the movie. And this was back in the early 2000s, and technology's only gotten better since then. Don't forget, this was in the early 2000s, and when technology wasn't as good back then, and you got an amazing movie like that. Well, imagine in 2020s, technology has gotten better. $970 million put towards an amazing Last of Us movie. You're looking at an 8K world, better than Avatar, except it looks more natural. Unheard of action sequences, unheard of horror, scarier than The Exorcist, as you're looking at literal devils on the screen. I'm not kidding around. You're looking at something for all you guys who saw The Exorcist you can argue is the scariest movie ever made. The first one, the first Exorcist movie, you can argue is the scariest movie ever made. Freaky movie. Well, imagine devils 3 times scarier than that, man. You're looking at something fucking horrific. And that's why Xanus will be the best story ever told. As you're looking at the Bible, obviously. For Xanus, you're looking at the Bible. It's pretty much the Bible. You know how Passion of Christ was kind of scary with the devil? Well, think something 3 times. Xanus is literally like the Bible. Tachys is the symbolism of Jesus. Eritas is the symbolism of the devil. Papyri is the symbolism of Jesus' disciple. Obviously. Right? Obviously, right? The walls and bats are symbolism of devils and demons. You also have the cursed demon ancestors, who are the symbolism of the powers and principalities. Right? The what? I don't want to kill the story, but the ancestors are pretty much symbolism of fallen angels. Obviously, the ancestors of the South are pretty much symbolism of fallen angels. I don't want to kill the story for you. They're pretty much a symbol of the fallen angels, the cursed demon ancestors. Hence why Tachys and Ag, because you not only have Eratat and his army and his demon son, his abomination, you also have the cursed demon ancestors. I don't want to kill the story for you. Just remember that the North is holy and the South is cursed, obviously. Right? I'm going to say this. Lord, I'm running out of... my thing is running out again. Let me try a different color here. My black markers ran out. I'll use my purple one. It's purple you can see better than orange, right? Let's try green. I'll use my green marker. After a couple hours, my marker, after like 30 minutes, my marker runs out. I have to let it what? I have to wait like a couple days for what? For my marker to be good again. I'm done. Right. I bought this board for $50, so yeah, I bought a cheap board on Amazon. I'm gonna say this. So Lord of the Rings is what? Lord of the Rings has what? Better world building, obviously. World building than what? Than Last Hope for Xanus, obviously. But Last Hope for Xanus is a what? Is a better written story. I hope you guys remember that, obviously. It's a better written story. So Lord of the Rings has better world building than Last Hope for Xanus, but Last Hope for Xanus is a better written story. Right? So nothing can top what? Nothing can top the what? The Lord of the Rings world building and story, except for what? Except for Xanus. Except for Last Hope for Xanus. I'm going to keep saying that. So even though right now J.R.R. Tolkien is considered the god of fantasy, nothing can top Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings has better world building than Last Hope for Xanus, obviously. Last Hope for Xanus world building is almost as good as Lord of the Rings, but it's not as good as Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings has such deep world building, races, languages, nothing can top that. But Last Hope for Xanus is a better written story. It's a better written story. Whereas Lord of the Rings has better world building. As nothing can top the Lord of the Rings world building and story except for Last Hope for Xanus. So nothing can top the Lord of the Rings story and world building except for Last Hope for Xanus. As what? As Last Hope for Xanus is a what? Is a unique story. You'll find what I mean with that when you read the book. Right? So good that what? That when I release the book on Lulu and the whole world reads it, every what? Every fantasy book that what? It comes out after it, obviously, right? Afterwards will not be able to beat it. Will not be able to beat it. That's how good xanus is, man. I don't mean to be cocky. I'm just telling you right now, man. My book is so unique that no fans will be able to beat it once I release it on Lulu. That's how good Last Hope for Xanus is. Okay, I'm gonna keep saying that. I hope you guys can see the green wall. I might change the purple. You might see purple better. Lord of the Rings has better world building than Last Hope for Xanus, but Last Hope for Xanus is a better written story, as nothing can top the Lord of the Rings world building and story except for Last Hope for Xanus. Except for Last Hope for Xanus. That's how good Xanus is. As Last Hope for Xanus is a unique story, so good that what? I always forget to write stuff. As Last Hope for Xanus is a unique story, so good that when I release the book on Lulu and the whole world reads it, every fantasy book that comes out afterwards will not be able to beat it. That's how good Last Hope is. That's how good Last Hope for Xanus is. So Last Hope for Xanus is so good that once I release the book once I pay this bullshit fee and I come from death and I release the book on Lulu, and the whole world reads my book, you're looking at crazy buzz, crazier than even Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and Way of Kings and Game of Thrones. Once the whole world reads my book, every single fantasy book that comes out after will not be able to beat it, because Last Hope for Xanus is an unbelievable book because the story is so unique and nothing can top it. It's so good that once you read it, you're gonna be like, yeah, I can't see any book topping what Last Hope for Xanus, because Last Hope for Xanus is such an amazing story. Yeah, that's how good my Last Hope for Xanus book is, man. It's a fucking amazing book. The best story ever told, man. Better than even Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings has better world building, but the story is not better than Last Hope for Xanus. As Last Hope for Xanus, you're looking at a deeper plot than Lord of the Rings. Right? Right? I'm gonna say this. So before I talk about the movies, I'm gonna briefly talk about this about the book. Last Hope for Xanus has a what? Has a deeper what? A deeper plot than what? The Lord of the Rings. Right? Because in Lord of the Rings, the main plot of the story is destroying the ring, obviously. Right? So the main antagonist is Sauron, obviously. The main antagonist is what? Is Sauron, obviously. Right? Sauron and the ring. Those are the two main antagonists, obviously. The ring. Because the ring is like alive, right? The main plot is what? Frodo destroying the ring, obviously. Frodo destroying what? Destroying the ring in Mount Doom, obviously, right? Whereas Xanus, I'm not going to spoil the story. Xanus has a deeper plot. Deeper plot. You have what? You have Eretat. I'll just say this. The main antagonist is Eretat, obviously. I'm spelling antagonist wrong here. The main antagonist is what? Is Eretat, obviously. But Eretat's the devil himself, obviously. Right? You also have what? You have the cursed what? Demon ancestors, who are pretty much fallen angels. I don't want to spoil the story for you, but the cursed demon ancestors are pretty much symbolism of fallen angels. So the cursed demon ancestors, obviously, too, of the South. And Xanus has a deeper plot, obviously, than Lord of the Rings. I'm gonna keep saying that. Hence why it's a better story, obviously. Whereas Lord of the Rings just has better world building, but my book has a deeper plot. It's a better story. So Last Hope for Xanus has a what? Has a deeper plot than Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, the main antagonist is Sauron, pretty much, and the ring, because the ring possesses Boromir, it possesses Frodo, It possesses people. It possesses people, obviously. So the ring, you can argue is an antagonist too, obviously, because the ring is like alive. It can possess people, obviously. But the main plot of the story is pretty much Frodo destroying the ring and Mount Doom. That's pretty much the main plot of the story. So destroying the ring is an amazing plot, but that plot isn't as deep as the Xanus plot. Xanus has a much deeper plot. As Last of Xanus has a deeper plot than Lord of the Rings, as the main antagonist is Eretat, the devil himself. Sauron is a devil himself, but Sauron isn't as scary as Eretat, obviously. Right? Eretat's the devil himself, and the cursed demon asses of the south are also what? Antagonists, obviously, too, obviously. And don't forget, Tactius is in agony at the end of Volume 3. And that's why it's a what? It's a what? At the end of Volume 3. Right? Hence why what? Xanus is a better story than Lord of the Rings. I'm going to keep saying this. Lord of the Rings has better world building than my book, but Last of Xanus has a deeper plot than Lord of the Rings. It's a better written story than Lord of the Rings. As Lord of the Rings, the main antagonist is Sauron and the Ring, and the main plot is Frodo destroying the Ring and Mount Doom. And Last of Xanus has a deeper plot than Lord of the Rings, as the main antagonist is Eretat, who's the devil himself, and you also have the cursed demon asses of the south, who are also antagonists, and Tactius is in agony at the end of Volume 3. Hence why what? Xanus is a better written story than Lord of the Rings, that you're looking at something deep. You're looking at the Bible, man. You're looking at something. You know how the Old Testament you have scary stories of devils and all that stuff. Well, think of something like that for Xanus. Xanus is literally like the Bible. You're looking at a horror rated R movie. Whereas Lord of the Rings was PG-13, 14 plus. My movie for Xanus, you're looking at it's rated R, man. You're looking at 18 plus. 18 plus in canon, I believe, or 18 plus is rated R. Yeah, you're looking at a 17, 18 plus movie, man. Right, 21 minutes here. Right? I'll say this. Even though what? The Lord of the Rings movie trilogy, obviously, was amazing. Peter Jackson only followed about 20% of the story. I'm not kidding around, man. I don't mean to be rude, but I'm not kidding around. Read the books and watch the movies. There's like an 80% difference, man. Even though the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy was amazing, Peter Jackson only followed 20% of the book. As a lot of characters, as what? I'm gonna say this. A lot of what? Dialogue, scenes, and characters were cut. Make me say that. So even though the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy was amazing, Peter Jackson only followed about 20% of the book, as a lot of dialogue, scenes, and characters are cut. That are in the book, right? That are in the book, but not in the movie. See what I'm saying here? So even though the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy was amazing, Peter Jackson only followed about 20% of the book. I'm not kidding around. I read Fellowship of the Ring. I'm reading Two Towers right now, and I compare it to the movies. Oh my God, there's a lot of dialogue and scenes and characters that are cut from the movie that are in the book, obviously. So even though the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy was amazing, Peter Jackson only followed about 20% of the book, as a lot of dialogue, scenes, and characters were cut that are in the book, but not in the movie. You have Tom Bombadil, you have Glorfindel, you have Ugluk, you have Grishnak. You have all these characters that are cut, and a lot of scenes are cut too. There are a lot of scenes that are in Two Towers that are in Return of the King. For example, the scene when Sam is what? When Sam and Frodo take the pass to the Morgul Vale, that's in Two Towers. That's not in Return of the King. And yet in Return of the King, in the movie they have that scene in Return of the King. There's a lot of differences when you read the book and you watch the movie, man. Honestly, that's the one flaw I have in the Lord of the Rings. The one flaw. Some people disagree with me. There's some people who believe you don't have to follow the book exactly. You don't, in my opinion, you don't have to follow exactly what's written in the book, but in my opinion, you should at least follow 60% of the book. Whereas Peter Jackson only followed 20% of the book because the book is too long. The book is too long. I'm going to say that. The book is too long. As if Peter Jackson were to follow, I don't know, 70% of the book, you're looking at a 6-movie series. You're looking at a 6 to 7 movie series. Because Lord of the Rings is so fucking long. Hence why they have to cut out so many scenes, obviously, to constrain the time for the theaters, obviously, right? Right. So even though the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy was amazing, Peter Jackson's amazing trilogy, obviously, Peter Jackson only followed about 20% of the book, as a lot of dialogue scenes and characters were cut that are in the book but not in the movie. The book is too long, as if Peter Jackson were to follow 7% of the book, you're looking at a 6 to 7 movie series. In my opinion, I believe Peter Jackson should have followed 70% of the book. Even though it will be a 6-movie series, in my opinion, I think Peter Jackson should have followed more of the story. But he only followed 20% of the story, hence why what? They had to what? Even though it was 3 movies, they only followed like 20% of the book. Hence why you only had a 9-hour movie. Whereas if Peter Jackson followed the movie what? 7% of the book, it would have been like a 20-hour movie, a 20-hour movie. A 6-7 movie series. It would have been something long. Obviously. Right. Hence why my Last of Us series will also be better, because I'm actually going to follow 70% of what? The book, obviously. Right? I'll say this, unlike Lord of the Rings, I will what? Will follow 70% of the what? Of the book. I'm not going to follow word to word, obviously. There's some scenes that are in the book that I'm not going to add to the movie. But I'm going to follow 70% of the book. That way what? That way I remain faithful to the story, obviously. As I don't want to drift off and do my own thing with the movie. No, follow the story. You don't have to follow word to word. No, I'll follow 70% of the story. I'll add 30% for details. For details with Aratat, Tactius, for Fool, the Salons. I'll add more details, obviously, to make it more interesting. So unlike Lord of the Rings, I'll follow 70% of the book. That way I remain what? I remain faithful to the story. Obviously. I remain faithful to the what? To the last hope for Xanus' story. So I will add what? I will add 30% of what? Of scenes, details, and dialogue. Obviously. To what? To make the movie more interesting, obviously. So you don't have to, in my opinion, you don't follow the book word to word. No, it's cool to have the movie should be a little different than the book, but in my opinion, you should at least follow like 60% of the story. Don't go off in a tangent and make up your own stuff. Follow a good 60% of the book. That way, you're faithful to the book. Obviously, there's some people who disagree with me. There's some people who believe you don't have to follow the book at all. But in my opinion, you should follow at least 60% of the book, obviously. Right. So unlike Lord of the Rings, I'll follow 70% of the book. That way I remain faithful to the last of Xanus' story. I will add 30% of scenes, details, and dialogue to make the movie more interesting. More interesting, obviously, right? I spelled interesting wrong here. To make the movie more interesting. Obviously. Right. Hence why what? Hence why Last of Xanus will be best ever told. Will be the best, one of, not the best story ever told, the best story ever told. Motion picture. Right? So unlike Lord of the Rings, I'll follow 70% of the book. That way I remain faithful to the Last of Xanus story. I will add 30% of scenes, details, and dialogue to make the movie more interesting, obviously. Hence why Last of Us Aliens will be the best story ever told in motion picture. Right? One reason why it'll be better than Lord of the Rings, I'll give you one reason here. Right? Last of Us Aliens is what? Is more faithful to the book than Lord of the Rings. Whereas Lord of the Rings, they only follow like 20% of the book, man. I'm not kidding around. To all you guys out there who haven't read Lord of the Rings, I recommend you buy the Lord of the Rings series and you watch the movies. Even though the Lord of the Rings adaptation was amazing, it's the best movie trilogy ever made. The only flaw, the only con about that series is they only follow like 20% of J.R.R. Tolkien's book. Hence, they follow the core of the story, but read the book and watch the movies. There's an 80% difference, man. One reason why Last of Us Aliens will be better than Lord of the Rings is Last of Us Aliens is more faithful to the what? To the book, obviously, than Lord of the Rings. Other Rings. And it's also a better written, right? Right? One reason. Second reason, it is a better story. It is a better story than Lord of the Rings. And the third reason is what? A more expensive movie, obviously. The most expensive movie ever made. Ever made. These are the three reasons why Last of Us Aliens would be better than Lord of the Rings. So I'll quickly here. So unlike Lord of the Rings, I'll follow 70% of the book. That way I remain faithful to the Last of Us Aliens story. I will add 30% of scenes, details, and dialogue to the movie to make it more interesting. Hence why Last of Us Aliens will be a better story, will be the best story ever told in motion picture. One, obviously not the best story told in motion picture. One reason will be better than Lord of the Rings, Last of Us Aliens is more faithful to the book than Lord of the Rings. The second reason is a better written story than Lord of the Rings. And the third reason is the most expensive movie ever made. And the fourth reason is I hired the perfect actors. Here's my count here.